Can you come out as sex positive? I'm Kathy Bertoli from theintimacydojo.com.
I'm Reed Mihalko from readaboutsex.com.
And yeah, you can.
But why would you want to, Kathy? The world is easier. And why is it? It's not everybody's business.
It may not be everybody's business. And just like I came out as a lesbian in 92, I think it was, because I thought if you like kissing girls, you had to be just a lesbian. I didn't realize there were shades in there. But I came out to people I care about because to me, intimacy is, I certainly can keep things private, but if I'm not sharing what's important to me with people that are close to me, then there's less intimacy, there's less connection. And if I'm always having to adjust pronouns or talk around things, there's certainly a boulder in the middle of our friendship that's going to prevent me from feeling connected to people. So I felt it was important to come out as at that time as gay.
Oh, so like if you're dating a woman and you're
like, what did you do this weekend? I went out with this
friend.
person, or I had a date, and then you just trying to avoid.
Like, what was he like? And you're like, well, and then so in your not sharing, you feel like you're lessening the connection with people.
And I'm spending half my time trying to figure out how not to lie. Like if you said, what was he like? And I'm not correcting you. Is that a lie? And
okay.
And, what did you do? Well, we went here, and trying to avoid names and pronouns is just really hard. And it was also something that was really important to me. So I wanted to share it.
Okay.
I think when people are sex positive, if it is easier to not, like at corporate where we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about work, or our private lives unless we have a really close friend generally, it does seem easier to not be out as sex positive. And yet then I think it also limits the ability to connect and change the world. So for me, I think that a lot of gay marriage passed because so many people had come out as gay that almost everybody knew a gay couple or a gay person. And they're like, oh, they're not scary. They're not bad. And so gay marriage, when they passed that said that was legal, I was like, that's really cool.
So because things were
normalized,
more normal and less strange, then it was easier for people to wrap their heads around.
Right. And I think a lot of people have the idea that if you talk about sex at all, you're some kind of pervert, or that you're not trustworthy, you're scary. And I've had people, because I have these videos where I talk about sex positivity, I've had people just assume I'm available for either they could hire me for sex or they could hire me to do sex coaching. And I was like, I don't do that. Hands-on work I don't do. Okay. And it's fine that people can ask.
Like if you're a math teacher, people just assume you're available to do math?
Well, I don't think they would assume that you would tutor their kids just because you're a math teacher. You might ask, but there's not the assumption that you're available for that kind of work, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think it's because a lot of people don't know how to bridge the gap between work and like, how do we keep that separate?
Well, also, so my questions then are how, like, when you say come out as sex positive, and we're assuming, like you're saying in this situation, like at work, because then there's coming out to your friends, coming out to your family. What does, because and maybe our watchers at home, our viewers at home, like, I think a lot of people understand what coming out as gay means, or queer, or lesbian these days. For me,
there was levels of it. Like, I first came out to my sister and a couple close friends, and it was only more recently that I told people at work that in general that...
But what that... when you came out as a lesbian, other people were like, oh, lesbian means you are into girls. So you, rather than dating, men... you're dating women. Right. Like, my question is, when you say come out as sex positive, I don't know that anyone knows what that means. So what are you coming out as? Right. What would you say?
Yeah, I think there's not even enough language in our culture to have a word for it. But if you talk, like if I want to talk to some friends that I have that I'm not super close with, and talk to them about the fact that I'm upset about Sesta Fosta, for example.
Okay. Or, which is?
Sesta Fosta is laws that were passed to make it, they limit how much you can share about sexuality in certain areas on the internet.
Okay.
As a bad use Google.
Like sharing about sex on the internet is bad. We've made a law to help prevent sharing of that.
Right.
Boom.
Roughly.
I mean, we're being reductive.
Yes. There's a lot more to it, but it's something that really does limit people's ability to communicate about it. And so, like, if I wanted to talk about anything to do with sex positivity, there's not a word that most people in our culture would understand. Like, they might in the sex positive community, oh yeah, I get that you're sex positive, but we don't really have a word that says that I'm not phobic, and I don't assume that everyone that talks about sex is a pervert.
Okay.
And even if I say sex geek, most people that are not in the sex geek bubble would say that means you have sex with a lot of people, or have sex with everybody, or what does that mean?
Or sex only with geeks.
Yeah. Versus how I take it to mean is I'm curious about how people connect emotionally and physically, sexually, and I want to know about it.
Yeah.
Like I want to know ideas.
And you're not ashamed, or you understand how much shame there is around these things. Mm-hmm. So you see helping people talk about sexuality and
it's very positive,
and not be negative around sex and pleasure, accurate sexual health information, like that. Being sex positive is a way that you identify. And so how do you share with people at work or your friends and family that, like, hey, I think it's healthy to talk about these things and these challenges surrounding these things?
Yeah, and I think it's hard because I'm noticing the same level of, for me in the 90s when I was talking about being a lesbian, I was afraid to tell anyone because I felt like telling them would upset them or traumatize them to hear about it. So it was really hard, and I was afraid they'd be afraid of me afterwards.
But that fear is also could be relabeled consideration.
Yeah, it's
you're
like
considerate that other people might have challenges.
Yes, and I was also afraid of the repercussions on me.
Okay.
And I feel the same thing when I'm trying to talk to people now about being sex positive. And I certainly don't want to, like, oh, you must know about the clitoral legs, let me show you mine. It's like, like how...
That would be a little weird.
Yes.
Because those are underneath all the skin.
You don't have transparent skin for your sex education? Sorry, total segue.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to be funny, and it's now gone someplace
I
else.
think it's funny.
Tell us.
This is my funny body language.
You're terrified body language. Like, how do you bridge that? How do you talk about that? And what I've done a lot of times is shown a video that, or said, have you seen this video where it's very innocuous, but there's a little bit of talk about, like, dating and relationships and sexuality, and see, like, how do you kind of feel people out to know that they're not going to be freaked out about it? And some people are like, oh, that's so cool, I know all about that stuff, and some people are like, well, that's too much for me, and you don't know. So there's like, how do you know who to tell and how much, and how do you bridge that so that I like being able to talk more about real things that are affecting me, and pretending that we're not sexual isn't
cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, I you're preaching to the converted here, and, like, you work in corporate America. I don't. So, like, I don't even know how you come out at work about being sex positive when we're not supposed to be talking about sex at work.
I'm not even talking about at work. I'm talking because I generally don't talk about that. That's like, I don't talk about it at work. There's a couple people that are close friends outside of work that we will have conversations if we go out to dinner or something, but to me, it's like got to be a wall. Unfortunately, because I don't know how else. It's really hard to handle that, and I get that. But even just talking to friends, if you make new friends, or you're at a munch with somebody, or about knitting, like, how do you just be yourself? How do you be authentic?
I think it depends on what you're knitting. Are you knitting a big set of clitoral legs? Because that's probably your...
Or a penis warmer.
Hello. I might not be normal.
Yeah, I think it's a struggle, and actually I'd love to hear what people think. Like, how do you deal with this?
Yeah. Share in the comments. I mean, if you've got any good knitting patterns for, like, a dildo cozy or something like that, like throw the link there as well.
Oh my goodness. I see.
That's
like the toilet coat, it's a thing with the little flowers on top.
I've got a couple of dildo cozies. I have one that looks like a TARDIS. And if you're watching, the person who knit that for me, I see you.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I'm a Whovian.
If you have comments or thoughts, we'd love to hear. Please leave them below.
It's bigger on the inside.
Oh, that was funny.